Welcome to Culture at Work, the podcast that explores the keys to building and maintaining a strong corporate culture during these challenging times when so many are opting to work from home. Hear from experts in the fields of architecture, design, management, real estate, and more as we explore a wide range of approaches to unlocking the potential of your workspace and elevating your organization's culture. I'm your host, Tim Carroll, inviting you to join us as we dive into the challenges of bringing people back to the office and building a culture that inspires, motivates, and connects employees like never before. On today's podcast, we're excited to have Doug Ryan, Principal and Executive Vice President with Colliers in Nashville, Tennessee. As Executive Vice President in Office Brokerage, Doug provides landlord and tenant representation with a focus on serving clients as a trusted advisor, navigating the complexities of real estate transactions, and bringing clarity to corporate leases. Doug holds a master's in urban planning from the University of Michigan and a bachelor's of science in architecture from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. This is going to be a great conversation. Let's get right to it. Hey, Doug, thank you so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. Hey, I wanted to get you on today's podcast because I really want to get some insight from the broker side on what's happening. And specifically in all of our markets, what are we seeing in the markets in real estate relative to culture, among other things? So my first question for you today is, hey, look, I grew up in Nashville. I'm born and bred in Nashville, Tennessee, and you have a long history here of in this industry, and we've both seen this town change in
Absolutely.
big ways.
Absolutely.
I know what those changes look like visually. You know, a whole lot more pedal taverns and bachelorettes, but what don't we see? What are the two or three things that you're seeing from your perspective that's changing in a town that's, by anybody's definition, a booming city?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me.
Of course.
It's tough because Nashville, I think so much of the built environment is obvious to everybody who's been here forever or has relocated here relatively recently. I mean, even if you got here 3 or 4 years ago, you would notice the differences, the changes. But one thing that's maybe not talked about that is amazing to see for those of us that have been here a long time, that's kind of the development of the neighborhoods. It used to be, East Nashville was like the lone rebel, cool, hip place to be.
Right.
And we've seen amazing new neighborhoods pop up in Germantown and Wedgwood, Houston, and Edge Hill and Sylvan Park in the Nations and Charlotte Park. All of these things that maybe we didn't really even talk about. If I said to you 15 years ago, hey, we're over in Charlotte Park, you'd be like, where is that?
Yeah.
But yet these are all Davidson County neighborhoods. Of course, we know Brentwood and Cool Springs and Franklin, but what we've seen, those of us been here a long time, it's these neighborhoods that have developed and become very livable, walkable, shopping, restaurants, really kind of awesome little enclaves in the city that, were there, were a part of the fabric, had history, but they weren't growing. People weren't investing there per se. And now that's totally changed.
Yeah. I mean, look, first of all, I saw recently a picture of Nashville 10 years ago and Nashville now, and it's unrecognizable.
Yeah.
But, I lived in New York for a number of years and all neighborhoods. That's what brings the whole city together, is these little neighborhoods. And so to hear that happen here when I got back and to hear all these little neighborhoods popping up, it really was awesome. It just really was exciting to see, just how livable, as you said, this city has become. When I was a kid, nobody lived downtown. Nobody lived anywhere.
Yeah. And it's the same thing on the office side, which you and I do, day to day. it started with Sobro, out of the CBD south of Broadway. That has turned into the Gulch, then the North Gulch, and now, Music Row is seeing Class A office. Midtown is seeing Class A office, kind of happened between Vanderbilt and, what is the Gulch and North Gulch. So like projects like Broad West, these things have been infill in and around, and I call it the fringe. And it's been really interesting. I would tell you that things that are maybe not as discernible to the passerby, but Nashville companies who were previously in the CBD have kind of bounced to the fringe, and inbound corporate relocations from other places have gone into the CBD. For example, Alliance Bernstein came from Manhattan with their headquarters. They wanted to be in the CBD right on Broadway. They wanted all that craziness in culture because they're used to population density. And so Alliance Bernstein comes downtown, 3-4 law firms that are in downtown bounce out to the fringe because they don't want to deal with the tourism and the nonstop construction.
Why are people coming to Nashville?
I think it's quality of life and the quality of people. You said the word culture. I think Nashville's culture almost, both of us have lived around the world, frankly, many cities in the US, and I lived in Europe for my last semester of architecture. And Nashville is unique. You get here and the people are friendly, helpful. Everybody seems to be in a good mood. And I've lived in cities where that was not the case.
Me too.
And you feel it day to day.
Yeah.
And so when you come to visit and you take in music, and it's very walkable. I mean, it's a joke. The downtown's 8 blocks by 8 blocks, and it's hard to not come away with a sense of, and it's like there's a real vibrancy there. People are friendly, even if it's tourists who are commingling with each other, not even necessarily Nashvillians, but they're commingling with each other, and that vibe has rubbed off on them, and everybody's happy to be here and experience what Nashville has to offer.
I'm sure no state tax has nothing to do with it either.
So that's the great thing. It gets them, if you're a corporate C-suite and you're looking at, hey, can we relocate from our area? Can we hire? Can we get the talent and recruit and retain in a city like that? But certainly, the Southeast as a whole has benefited from a migration inward especially during and since the pandemic.
So that brings up an interesting question, I think, is do you get, and I think I know the answer to this, but I want to peel back the onion a little bit on the question I'm sure you get a lot is around that quality talent. And what is your answer to that? What has Nashville done to ensure that the working population is trained, talented, motivated?
Yeah. So I don't remember exactly the number of people per day, but it's like 86 people
I think it's
moving to Nashville every day. So just general immigration is great. But I think that former clients like Amazon and Oracle would tell you that they expected hiring to be somewhat of a challenge. And in each case, and I would put Alliance Bernstein in the same category. In each case, they outpaced their hiring. It became way easier to recruit people to Nashville than they ever expected. And then you can go all the way back to some of our first corporate relocations in Nissan North America and Mars Pet Care. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Early 2000s.
Cool Springs.
Yeah, when they came, they expected they would lose half of their workforce and then have to hire to recover that. And it was significantly better than that for both companies in terms of those transplants who wanted to leave California and come to Nashville. So they retained more people than they expected. and then recruiting the talent to join them in Nashville has outpaced their expectations as well.
Any consideration? So it sounds to me what you're saying is it's a lot of, hey, let's bring the talent in, new talents flooding the place every day. Any conversations around the homegrown talent? Any conversations around, I mean, at one time, back when I gave tours around Nashville in college, I gave the bus tours with the microphones and stuff. But one of the statistics I remember was there were more colleges and universities per capita in Nashville, second only to New York City. Is that any kind of conversation around the homegrown talent and the education here?
Yeah, for sure. I'd never heard that statistic before.
A long time ago.
That statement, yeah. But no question, Vanderbilt is a draw.
Yeah,
and MTSU, they're pumping out something like 20,000 graduates a year, and it used to be that something in the 60% would stay in Nashville, but in the last 10-15 years, it's been more like 75% stay. And so for sure, Amazon, TSU to kind of cultivate their profile of graduate that they're looking for in logistics, and so the same with Alliance Bernstein. They're very active in and around the local universities, trying to help offer programs and mobility into their company once you graduate.
So I'm going to ask the question that I ask everybody, and there's one question I ask everybody, and that's towards the top. How would you define culture in the workplace?
I would say that culture is kind of the dark matter that happens between people in organizations. You can't always define it. You can encourage it and help it, or you can hinder it based on leadership. I think trust is a big component of culture. I think camaraderie is a component to culture, but it's very difficult to define. And many of my clients are seeking to, in this day and age, keep culture that they have built. In culture, in terms of corporations, is very relatable to brand, but culture itself is made up of sort of the feeling that a person gets either in an organization or as broadly as a city.
I've heard somebody say once that culture is the personality of the organization.
Yeah.
And you mentioned things like trust and camaraderie. In your professional experience, in the job that you do you feel that's better fit and better able to happen in an office, or can it be done virtually?
I think it depends on the organization, but I would say broadly, it has to happen in person. And I think most of my clients are struggling with how to maintain or build further their culture. Or in the case of, Asurian, they were decentralized and they felt like they wanted to redefine their culture, and they chose to build a headquarters and locate everybody together. And so culture can happen when you're together, for sure. There are probably entrepreneurial segments of companies and maybe music industry where they can be a little more remote, but certainly when it comes to creative process, you got to be together.
No doubt it can work. There's no doubt it in certain circumstances. So we're definitely not absolutes. There are no absolutes as it relates to this, but what are your clients looking for when you have these conversations? Because you take them around to see locations, it gets personal.
Sure.
What are they saying to you that they want to do to ensure people want to come back to the office? And when they do, they see value in the office.
So the focus is, much more on amenity, and recruit and retain is the goal, right? So they're all competing for the same 6,500 graduates from Vanderbilt
Yeah.
every year. And so they are focused on being able to recruit and retain. And you have to do that with, a discernible sense of culture and office space. And law firms are always the great example that we see waves in about every 8.5, 10 years. Every one of those law firms will redo their office or move locations and create the latest state of the art, because they're competing for those graduates locally and around the country who want to be here. And so they're trying to outcompete each other, having the coolest, hippest space. That's not every law firm, but I've seen, just since being here, what am I, 16, 17 years going on this market, I've seen two big waves of a total turnover in pretty much every law firm in town moving and upgrading their space. So recruit and retain is the focus. And today, and how it differs from 10 or 15 years ago, is that they're focused on amenities for their employees, like walkable, so you don't have to get in your car. We use a term in the business, commodity office. If you've heard that, it's picture Cool Springs, mid-rise office building surrounded by a sea of parking that you have to get in your car and drive somewhere to get a sandwich, to grab a cup of coffee, maybe to work out, or like that. To me, I think commodity office around the world is going to struggle. And today, these fringe locations that have been developed, like these Gulch neighborhoods, for example, North Gulch, Midtown, Music Row, you're getting not just Class A office that are built in these locations, but you're getting retail and eating and dining and beverage, everything walkable. And then the whole piece of sustainability comes into play too. Corporations, trying to communicate their brand and their culture, want to be sustainable, because it's what the young kids what are we on? It's not Gen Z. It's not millennials. Well, I don't even know where we are, but whatever they're called, the environment's important to them.
Gen tech.
Yeah, exactly. So it's important. And so those are kind of the criteria of what they're looking for today.
What are, like, back 10, 15 years ago, it was the Google office.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted the putting green and the
ping pong
table and, make sure you have a kegerator and all that stuff. So I think one thing that came from that is everybody realized it's tough to maintain those things, and like they just start getting beat up, or they stop getting used at all. And then it just probably is not the thing today, obviously post pandemic. What is?
Yeah.
What is the amenity inside the space, inside the building, inside the office that's encouraging and that your clients are looking to do?
Well, offices are looking more and more like hospitality spaces. If that makes sense. If you can picture, the coolest, hippest hotels in their lobbies and their lounge areas, it's definitely skewing in that direction. It's more communal space. There are places to touch down and do quiet work, but it's predominantly loungy hospitality feeling is where everything is headed. Green space, outdoor space, access to the outdoors. And those outdoor spaces are well amenitized, loungy feeling as well, with Wi-Fi, the ability to have a meeting on a balcony. There was a time when I started in the business here, there wasn't a single office building with a balcony. And now pretty much everything that's been built has had balconies or outdoor spaces incorporated. Some of them communal, but some of them now even offering them per floor or even multiple per floor, so that the tenant themselves could have their own balcony, for example. So we went from no balconies to balconies that were communal now balconies that are available for their own specific suites. And of course, they now pay for those spaces when they're exclusive.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about homing from work now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because post-pandemic, I think one of the things that people really enjoyed is the choice and control.
Yep.
Which is what this industry, our industry, furniture, interiors industry has been about for many years, but choice and control of where and how you work. But it's making it feel more like home at the office, where people can curl up on a couch with a blanket and get work done like they could when they were at home.
Yeah.
Or go take a walk,
Sure.
or go sit outside, like they did in their back porch, and we're able to work. So I see that same thing, that
Yeah.
people are wanting to do that across the country.
Yeah.
And not just in Nashville, but in Denver and Orlando and St. Louis, and we're seeing it everywhere. That's the flexibility of a space and the choice of control, and giving people the ability to lounge
Sure.
at the office, right?
Yeah.
Are you seeing that same thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Without question.
Okay, we're going to break away for just a quick message, and we'll be right back after this. At Working Spaces, we do much more than just sell furniture. We immerse ourselves in the culture of each and every client, and then create spaces that inspire creativity, inspire productivity, and inspire connectivity. So if you're looking to create an office space that inspires your employees to want to come back to the office, collaborate face-to-face, and do their best work every day, contact Working Spaces. Working Spaces, the innovative leader in office furniture and design since 1999. Now in 6 markets nationwide. Welcome back to Culture at Work. So, in your opinion, and look, I think by anybody's definition, you're an expert in your field. You, one of, if not the top brokers in the city, in a bustling, busy, crazy busy city. And you are on the front lines of the office. What workplace trends are you seeing that anybody listening can, start thinking about? Because look, our audience is designers and other brokers and
Yeah.
GCs, and what trends are you seeing coming out of Nashville that could have ripple effects for years to come?
I would say for sure, I don't know, what are we, 12 months out of the last wave of pandemic, where before we weren't so sure how these were going to shake out, all the different changes we were seeing. But I would tell you today, pretty much everybody agrees that not every worker is coming to the office 5 days a week. In fact, probably no one will be 5 days a week in the office going forward. And so that's caused a huge question within the C-suite, is as their leases renew, or they're looking at quality of the space that they currently have versus some of the newer space that's much more expensive, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
They have to weigh this and say, okay, if our workforce is going to be here on average 3 days a week, how do we get them for 4? And do we incentivize or do we penalize our employees who either choose to come in more or less? And so, because they want to have a discernible culture and a discernible brand, and frankly, it's hard to feel like you're, running an organization that's living, breathing, healthy, growing. Bottom line, if you're not seeing your employees. So I think everybody would tell you that the 5-day work week is pretty much gone.
What's Colliers doing for the people that work at Colliers to help encourage, embrace culture, affect culture? What are they doing? And secondary question, what are they doing to encourage people to come together
Yeah.
and be in the office?
So for sure, we've adapted and allowed our employees, our key folks who support the brokers on a day-to-day basis, to be flexible. So my assistant, is in the office 3 days a week and works remotely 2 days a week. And it's interesting. I've had an opportunity to do this now for a better part of a year, and I really do feel like I'm not missing anything in terms of service to me. Whether she is working at home or she's in the office, um, it really has become okay, and we've all adjusted. And so that flexibility allows you to take the dog to the vet or go to a doctor's appointment. That flexibility. Now, brokers ourselves, we've always been flexible. I mean,
Sure.
nobody's expected us to be.
I think it's sales in general.
Yeah, I mean, sales in general, we're moving, and you're not in the office every day, sitting in front of that computer screen. You're out, whether it's you're out on the sales cycle, meeting and developing relationships so that you can do the next transaction.
Do you miss that connection? Do you feel like anything's missed? I mean, just you don't feel like what I heard from you is I don't feel like there's any productivity lost.
Not in my
But do you
case.
feel there's any connection lost?
I'm
I'm not leading you in a way. I'm just trying to really.
It's a fair question.
I just wonder because we see that in our office, and we do 1 day a week.
Yeah.
Work from home. It's Wednesday. It's middle of the week. We let everybody kind of, stay home. And
You make people come in on Mondays.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I would tell you that 80% of my clients, it's Monday or Friday.
Yeah.
That nobody's in the office. And so everyone's there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I think anyone living in the city would know that the commute is different on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday so maybe you're doing them a favor by letting them off on a very difficult commute day.
There you go.
There you go.
I'm just give it back. I'm just thinking of all angles. No, it's a great middle that we've tried it all. We did shift where A group, B group came in and we found that was tough with different cultures being created. We tried because we wanted to be able to advise.
Yeah.
3 days a week, 2 days a week, it just 1 day was good because of that connection. So that's the reason I ask is
Sure.
We feel different when we're out of the office. Now, I don't know if everybody would agree with me, but a number of us, at least in the leadership, we feel differently, like the connection when we're not in the office. If we're not in the office, but 3 days a week, I think we would lose something. I think.
Yeah. I mean, every organization is, I would say, suffering with this very question.
Sure.
And finding that perfect balance for their workforce.
It's a point of this podcast.
It is
really
really
talk about these issues.
No question. And it's interesting if you back up on a macro level. So there's no doubt that Nashville office has slowed down in the last 24 months. In fact, it's probably been.
I think people would be surprised to hear that.
Yeah, no, Nashville's growth has been predominantly multifamily, some hotel.
That's happening
all
everywhere.
Of the industrial's on fire, has been on fire.
I haven't heard the term multifamily more across the country in all of our markets than I have in the past 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, most of the cranes in that you see in the CBD and going out toward Vanderbilt, most of those are multifamily, and a few hotel. There's a couple office projects mixed in there, but those were begun much earlier.
Why is that happening? For anybody listening that would want to ask that question, why are there so many multifamily projects out there?
I'm not the multifamily expert, but I would tell you that the workforce wants to be in town.
Yeah.
These youngsters, they don't seem to care what the rental rate is either. They'll just move a couple of them in and they'll share the rent.
Yeah.
It's very expensive to live anywhere around downtown, but it doesn't seem to factor in. And so, we're becoming a more urban living crew now. Whether this wave of worker who wants to live downtown and they're in their 20s gets married and migrates back out, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've read about these kind of push and pulls that have happened in cities, not like Nashville, because Nashville really didn't have a downtown. This is a kind of still a new thing, livable, but bigger cities that people did live downtown, and they all migrated out. And then all the younger or kids are now coming in, or adults are now coming in, and they'll probably migrate out again. And then you'll be stuck with a lot of.
Did you know it was illegal to live in downtown before 2001?
I did not.
Prohibition against residential units in the downtown.
So that seems a little late in history to have that finally changed.
It might be 2004. Somebody who listens to this podcast knows that, but I'm talking like 2001, I believe, is the year where that zoning was finally changed.
Who was the driving force behind that zoning?
I don't know all of the people, but I know Tony Gerentano.
I was going to say Gerentano.
Yeah, he was very. I can envision a reality where he was very much on the forefront of that, and his urban grocery, right there on Church Street were the first projects. So
thankful for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's made the city better, right?
No question.
And we have other cities in our markets going through the same things, like Kansas City. I think Kansas City is going through a similar kind of thing. They're, I think maybe a few years behind us, and then they're rapidly catching up. They're having the same downtown revitalization, kind of thing where people are moving down there. A lot of multifamily. It's an interesting time down there as well. But back to what you all at Colliers are doing. What do you feel is, well, I'll go the positive route here. What do you think is the best thing you guys are doing as an organization to help drive culture?
Well, so I've had the opportunity in my career to work for 3 of the big 4 brokerage companies. I worked for Cushman & Wakefield first, then CBRE, and now Colliers. I've never worked for JLL, but those are the big 4. I think you're going to see, the majority of those signs are going to be one of those 4 companies.
In all of our markets.
Yeah, in every market worldwide. I mean, it's pretty amazing. What's unique about Colliers, and why I would say I'm happiest in my current company, is we're, I don't know, more entrepreneurial. We're more freedom as an individual, less corporate. We're still adhering to amazing principles. We're still all working hard for our clients, but there seems to be more flexibility. And I think today workers want that flexibility. And I mean, and who you are and how you approach business, not necessarily coming in on Tuesday or staying home on Wednesday. I mean, the flexibility to be who you are and find your niche within, the work environment and client set that appeals to you and who you resonate with on the client side.
This is probably an unfair question for you, because I know your background and know that you were in our industry on the commercial interior side in the past. But taking that aside, setting that aside, as a broker and your peers, is there a value in your mind, the space, what can happen to the space, the design of the space when you're working with a client? Is that a conversation? Is that important, or is that secondary?
It's definitely primary, and it's maybe more important now than it ever has been. But more so than my history in past in commercial interiors and in specifically commercial furniture. My degree in architecture tells me that, the built environment has the ability to evoke all kinds of emotion, and all of those, for positive and negative. Whatever you're looking to exude, you can accomplish through the built environment.
Do you think your peers feel the same way?
I mean, maybe uniquely me because of my architecture background, and then urban planning, but I think they feel it with their clients. Their clients are coming to them maybe more so than ever, looking to them as the expert to say, look, we're struggling. We need We need this new paradigm, and we need you to help us do that. And so, for pitches, when all of us are going up against each other, and we're pitching clients' business, we're bringing the workplace interiors person with us as part of strategy, because helping them remake their brand or their culture, or to build upon it, or maybe it's, in the case of Asurion, decentralized come to centralized. Hellstream did the same thing, one of my clients. We're in different locations around the city, centralized down into North Gulch. So I think more than ever, in whether a broker has architecture background, I think they're feeling it and are going to their resources within each of their companies to help them guide the client as to what the reality of the future is. Maybe no better example of that is Amazon, committed to 5,000 employees. They built the first tower, fully occupied the first tower. And then you may have read an article that says Amazon's pausing construction on Tower 2. Well, they didn't really pause construction on the exterior of the building. That continued. It wasn't topped out when the article came. They absolutely completed the building. But they did go back to their architect and say, the world has changed since we built Tower 1. The reality is different. And so let's go back to the drawing board and really revisit the interiors to say what we're going to build on the interior needs to address our new paradigm. And they did that. I think it was maybe a 3-month pause while they did that. And now they're back to building out those floors, and they have a whole new paradigm, and that tower will look very, very different from the first one.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of companies that said that they were going to have a full work from home strategy that have reversed that now and said, hey, look, it was a nice experiment, but we got to bring everybody back.
Yeah.
Are you seeing
100%
some of that?
Especially in the tech sector. We, in the industry, we joke, and I think it's been said on, most of your monetary programs as well, but this recession is acutely focused on the Patagonia vest recession, they're calling it, which is the tech sector. The tech sector is being hit harder than anybody right now. And you saw that in the Silicon Valley Bank failure. Northern and Central California are really hit, and that affects Amazon and Oracle, who's coming, and the spinoff, which is really where Nashville in the growth in the future is going to be, is in that spinoff of Oracle and Amazon, those jobs that are brought here, because those two companies have located here. And lots of studies have been done on other cities where they've located, and the spinoff can be determined and planned for. But I saw it firsthand with AllianceBernstein when they came from Manhattan in the heart, and they occupied as we're coming out of the pandemic, but they had a bunch of spinoff in fintech. So I was actually signing office leases in the middle of the pandemic with one industry, and that was fintech. So when whatever this recession is done, or we start to come out of it, I think everyone expects that tech sector to come in full force back to Nashville.
We like to say that culture requires pants.
And apparently Patagonia vests.
And Patagonia vests. So we have to add that on there now as well. Hey, Doug, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time, your expertise. It's just amazing, and your insights. And just thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today on Culture at Work.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.